Hi, I'm Teneale.
And I'm Kelsey, and we're financial advisors from 𝐴𝑙𝑚𝑎𝑛 Partners 𝗡𝑟𝑢𝑒, bringing you thought-provoking conversations around you, your money and your life on the Wealth Experience podcast. Hi everyone, thank you for joining us again on the Wealth Experience podcast. We are back with another guest today, which we're very excited to talk to about lots of things really, but mostly tips and tricks and insights from an accountant's perspective, as well as his professional journey and some of the challenges faced along the way. So with no further ado, Geoff O'Connor, welcome.
Good morning, good morning.
Thank you for being with us today. So you're a very successful business owner and director of SBB Partners, based here in Mackay, but also offices in Brisbane, Gold Coast, Bowen, Whitsunday,
throughout Queensland,
and Ayr. So you're dominating the Queensland space.
I feel like we have definitely dominated the Queensland space. Intentional, Kelsey.
Yes, of course. So on that note, thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to come and be here with us today.
It's been good.
Really excited to speak to you about lots of different things today. So Geoff, before we get stuck in, we know who you are, but the audience doesn't.
This is true.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, the non-work Geoff.
Yeah, the non-work Geoff. Great question. All right, well, let's start there. So my name's Geoff. As you alluded, I own SBB Partners, one of 6 directors. And yes, we have expanded. So guys, we have expanded up the coast. And that's kept us very busy lately. But I suppose the non-work Geoff is someone that's been in Mackay a long time. I was one of the first people to go out and do an accounting degree out at 𝐖𝐞𝐚𝐥𝐭𝐡.
So how did you find that at 𝐖𝐞𝐚𝐥𝐿𝐴?
Oh, Teneale, it was small. There was one building. They still had a cafeteria, so smoko was still a thing. But it was certainly a very small group. So what I think I found from that experience was making those real close connections even back in the 90s. So I went to the uni back in the 90s when Google didn't exist and you had to write all your own hand notes, and certainly did that locally. It was really important for me to stay local. And at that same time is when I secured my first job at 𝐵BB Partners, working for 𝗪𝐴𝑙𝑚𝑎𝑙𝑃𝑎𝑟𝑡𝑛𝑒𝑟𝑠, who's one of my lifelong mentors, a bit like you guys with Francis. And for me, that journey sort of paved my way both professionally but personally as well. He was a fantastic mentor. So I did my degree and then stayed in my job, which was, like I said, very, very good to me. And then over time, I sort of did those extra quals. So stayed here, heavily involved in the community. I've been on, the tennis committee, a big tennis player, guys, as most people do know. Oh, Kels, yeah, dust that racket off. Tennis became a big part of my life for a long time, and played very high-end competitive tennis.
Wow. And then so you're nothing like me, who has the problem where every time I went to play tennis, because I suck at it, I just could get so frustrated because I'm constantly going out of bounds to get the ball.
Teneale. It's like that small ball in a long range hole. You can get frustrated, but tennis was a sensational time in my life, and suddenly get to that point where is that really going to be your career or your dream versus the practicality. So I made a lot of lifelong friends through tennis, and a lot of them are still here in Mackay, which is great. But tennis was another community, a bit work and the business community here, where I developed a lot of friends. I also back then was working at McDonald's part-time as a Macca's manager.
My husband, Todd, he did the same. Not managing, but he worked at McDonald's as well.
It is a great foundation, Teneale. It's an awesome foundation. The way that McDonald's trains the Rezics, Nikki, Paula, the whole team, they're still there today. But that was another fantastic grounding, I think, in my life as well. So when you've got that all happening, so that's probably a little bit about me in that stage, and then stayed here and worked my way up. And I think my business has always kept me very connected to Mackay. So whilst it's a personal question, Kels, the business sort of has always kept me here in Mackay particularly. I have 2 fantastic cats as a sidestep, which I love to talk about. Love my cats dearly. My partner, Michael, he's a neurologist, so that keeps me very busy too, because he's based in Brisbane in that medical degree. But as I'm sure we'll get to talk to soon, that medical services for Mackay is a big thing, and sort of that's where we met when he was in his training days back in 2012, 2013, and sort of developed from there. So that's kept me busy, and very close to my family. There must be a lot
of to and fro-ing in your life.
There is. Frequent flyer miles, Cal. That's the thing, hey? Getting to the airport, and they all know me, a bit like your lovely practice at 𝐴𝑙𝑚𝑎𝑛. I walk through the door and very much greeted with lots of smiles, so I can't complain.
That's good.
So first tip for our audience, go and get a card that's linked to the
Absolutely.
flying miles.
If you don't, that's silly if you don't. But definitely a lot of backwards and forwards. But again, that energy or effort to do that is because I have a fantastic personal life here in Mackay and Brisbane, as well as a business life here and in Brisbane. So
I feel like I have so many questions from that. I'm just
Do
going to
you?
ask. Yes,
Just go
I
ahead.
do,
Just go
because
ahead.
we've obviously been friends and worked together
we
for a lot of years now.
a long time.
But
long time, actually.
I feel like I'm learning so much more about you right
Good.
now. For example, what are your cats' names?
My cat's names is the original cat, as we say. So Luca's the original cat. So he's like a white, fluffy sort of domestic long hair, and he's beautiful. I always think he's highly intelligent and could call 000 if I go down. And my second cat is called Basil. So Devlin got to pick him. So he's a British short hair, and he's a big lump of log that just sits there all day, but he's beautiful as well. So they're definitely
friends?
They are friends now. They're always hard when we introduce Basil. Basil's 3, Luca's nearly 13.
Yes.
You introduce that. So a big cats, I suppose, is part of our journey, but that gives just so relaxing to come home at the end of the day and have your cats there.
That's so nice. We have a cat. We've got Todd brought home a cat one day, and well, actually, Kelsey and I when Kelsey kind of first started working with 𝐴𝑙𝑚𝑎𝑛 Partners, Todd walked into the office one day and walked over and put this little kitten across the desk and went, "Here you go." And
This is yours.
I
now
looked at it and went,
forever.
"I don't know what to do with this because I've never had a cat before." But we've just moved house.
Yes, you have.
And I know that when you move house, you have to lock the
Lock
cat
them in
up,
the room.
right?
We
Yeah.
did the same thing when we transferred them from Mackay to Brisbane. We locked them in the piano room, the study, which has our piano in it, and we left them in there for nearly just shy of 3 weeks, so they could get used to it.
Okay.
But going from a single-story house, guys, to a double-story house, the cats just go, "What are these stairs? What are timber floors?" Like, it's such random stuff that you don't think how they adjust. So I know it's a silly thing, and Instagram certainly poses a lot of those wonderful little short videos, and cats are one of those things that do make you really relaxed.
Yeah.
So,
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
they're
She's
brilliant.
definitely had
They're
some
brilliant.
weird quirks since we've moved to the new space. It's been just over a week, so
Yeah.
but I'm getting
Early
all these
days.
different meows that I've never heard
Yeah.
before. So it's like a new language.
Oh.
I'm looking at you going, there was one
What
meow
is it?
before, and that was
Yeah.
I want food, and now I've got all these other ones. Is this the I want to get out of the house?
Yeah,
Because
there's
it's
more
not
to
going to
cats. There's
happen.
more to cats than they're on.
They are. They are always
things.
watching, Kels.
Yeah.
That's the thing. They're always watching.
Yeah.
Judging, as people say. So, yeah, no, the cats are obviously also a part of that relaxation. I think all of us here and everyone that you've had on your podcast, they have stressful jobs. We're decision fatigued at times. So cats definitely do provide that outlet for us to sort of de-stress at home.
Yeah.
So I won't lie.
Because that was going to be one of my questions, like how do you, because you are so busy,
Yeah.
there's so much going on,
Yeah.
all these different, Mackay, the Chamber of Commerce as well.
Yeah,
let's
the Chamber
not
of
forget that.
Chamber of Commerce is a huge passion of mine, which you two definitely know that I'm very passionate about community, and the Chamber of Commerce gives me that outlet, I think, to be able to get out and do that. So the word busy, I think the last 2 years I've always gone, everyone in my life knows Geoff's busy, so I'm trying to change that word. So if you've got a suggestion or your listeners have a suggestion for me, make sure they comment when they upload this, because I'd love to know a different word for busy. But yeah, busy is different to being stressed, I think, too.
Absolutely.
I have always been on the go, like you said, for a long time, and through my personal life as well. My younger brother, as you both know, he's had a heart transplant. So for 10 years, I was used to that commute anyway to Brisbane to secure him that new heart. So I've always been fast-paced and on the go.
Is that you really enjoy in your life, though?
It
Isn't
is.
Like maximising and living to the full.
Maximising. I don't want to sit back and go, I can rest when I'm 80.
Yeah.
It's like lots of people go, Geoff, what do you read? What do you listen to? And like podcasts are those things, guys, that you guys are doing really well. But these days you've got those snippet, short little responses. Me sitting down to read a book, I'll do that when I'm 90 and running Carlisle Gardens. Like let's be honest. So yeah, I do try to pack as much in, and it does keep me busy. But the Chamber of Commerce has been a blessing as well. So yeah, Kelsey, it's
you
good.
do a wonderful job as well.
Oh, thanks.
So.
No, cheers.
And you sort of mentioned that if we go right back to the start, you were talking about starting your degree with 𝐴𝑐𝐞𝐚𝐥𝐿 University. So tell us, how did you make a decision to get into accounting?
Oh, look, it was an interesting one, because when I was at high school, I always said I did all the sciences and maths, and accounting was that subject that sort of bolted into the spare line that you have. I know the schooling these days is very different, but for me it was always science, and I was particularly looking at something more in that medical sort of space. And then when push came to shove and you've got to pick that, I found that I was enjoying Mackay. Like I said, I had the tennis here, had my friends here. And out of my group, a lot of my friends didn't go to uni back then. So I felt like I was that one walking away from that group. So for me, I picked accounting because I could do it locally. And certainly, recently, and we're coming live from, I suppose, 𝐼𝐞𝐚𝐥𝐭𝐡, for us, for me, I think staying locally was a big part of it, and 𝐼𝐞𝐚 offered that. So that's why. Yeah.
And what kind of follower from that then? What do you love about accounting?
Oh, where do I start? No, I'm only joking. Look, I love a lot of things about accounting. I think the number one thing that most of my clients or my friends know is I like to be really personable. I like that each day my life is different. So clients will come into my office and every client is different. The way that you communicate with them is different. The problems are different. So I think for me, accounting offers that space where I get to talk to people, but every day is different. I think I would struggle in a very repetitive role. I don't think I'm built for that. But one of the things that's probably chalk and cheese with accounting, Teneale, is, people don't resonate me necessarily as an accountant.
You've got so much personality.
Well, this is something that I really like about you, Geoff, is because,
bit of sparkle.
You're making accounting exciting.
I love that.
People that aren't in that space or, don't really know much about it might go, oh, accounting, dreary,
I know, they
boring.
do. They do.
It's not. Clearly it's not.
It's
and
not.
It is different every day, as you said, and maybe people don't really understand that about it. But I like the side that you bring to it.
Thank you. You've got to try. I think everyone's going to be different, and there's always got to be a point of difference to your personal brand and your business brand as well. So, for me, I like to have that personal brand, not only just the SBB Partners brand.
Yeah.
So I think, again, guys, thanks. Sparkle, you've got to put sparkle in everything, but particularly each day is different. I like wanting to help people. I'm a people pleaser. I like to see growth. I like to see all those things in progression, and that's be it for my clients or the Mackay town itself. So I think accounting lets me do all that. To answer that question, I suppose, is it gives me the opportunity to do all that. Don't get me wrong, guys. There's these parts of, being a junior accountant or a junior lawyer, there's that time at the desk that you just have to burn. So at the start of my career, guys, it was very slow. Back then, the computer technology wasn't what it was. It was very manual based. And I always thought just bide my time sort of thing. Whereas these days, I think you'd see it in your practice is, kids or junior staff want real instant I suppose, gratification. They want to have instant work satisfaction. So again, don't get me wrong, accounting can be boring at times.
Yes,
Compliance is what it is. But you can make it a little bit more fun, and that's what we try to do at SBB Partners.
Absolutely. Yeah. You touched on a really good point there that is so important, that, there is a lot that happens in the build up to, being successful and being in the position that you're in. So I think and you do get rewarded,
Kels, on that for the time that you put in. I think that if you do take that time and you really work hard, I think no matter what it is, be it accounting, whatever it is, you will get there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, both my sister and my niece at the moment are studying accounting.
Great.
Which is great, because I'm going to send them to you with all the curly questions instead of me from here on out.
Teneale, you're very sharp. I'm sure you can pseudo accountant it.
They think I have the answers.
Yeah.
But to be honest, my degree wasn't accounting, so I did commerce financial planning.
Yeah, you did.
But there is a lot involved with it. There's so much to learn.
There's heaps and heaps and heaps. And I think where accounting has shifted to particularly is very different to what it was 30 years ago, 20 years ago, 10 years ago. People want a lot of hand-holding at the moment. You guys probably saw the article this week. Mackay's, come up ranked number 2 for most businesses being set up.
Yes.
And so with that comes a journey, and a lot of people want that hand-holding, a more personal experience. So I think that's engaging a different group of people wanting to study it. There'll be this lag, but accounting, you've got to be right, again, Kels, it's not the sexiest thing around. It's not the funnest thing around at times. But I think it's engaging a different audience at the moment for what we need to develop for Mackay, for Queensland, for the country. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's get stuck into some juicier stuff, if you don't mind.
I love juicy stuff.
I have more questions for you down that track. And if you don't mind sharing now, obviously you've mentioned that you've got a partner, you're a gay man in a regional town, which, I think as a community it's becoming a bit more of a normalcy to see a little bit more diversity in different types of people. Perhaps it wouldn't have been the case
that long ago.
That long ago.
Yeah.
But have you had any specific challenges with relation to that on your journey?
Yeah, look,
and how have you handled that?
Kelsey, it's a great question, and I know that, you know, even before the podcast you mentioned, you know, it can be one that's hard to answer, or do people get awkward? The answer is no. I think, like you said, is it has been normalised.
Yeah.
I think any minority group, any diversification has always had that. I think it has the issue around being gay and being in a regional town. That's not uncommon these days.
Yeah.
I think it is definitely more accepted. For me personally, I actually had a really good experience, even back then. So everyone around me was fantastic. My workplace was fantastic. You know, so that aspect of that, I suppose, diversification wasn't a big issue for me.
Yeah.
So professionally, I didn't have a lot of challenges.
Do you think that has anything to do with your personality as well too, and how you embrace it?
Teneale, I do.
Yeah.
I think no matter before or after, the fact was that I was personable.
Yeah.
People do find me I am quite an empathetic person.
Yeah.
A lot of people do run to me to tell me and get them to help them out.
Yeah.
So I think you're right to that extent, that my personality just was what it was at the time. I was worried at the time though. So to go back to, was there challenges? There was a lot of perceptions. So I was more worried about, like, Mackay has a big Catholic base, okay, as an example.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of long-term clients. We have a lot of farming clients. We have a lot of things. So for me, there was a lot of internal thoughts around that space, more so than the fact of what actually came out of out of it. You know, so, you know, diversification in the town is what it is. We all respect that, and I think that brings all those extra elements to the role, be it SBB Partners, be it whoever. You know, you learn a lot as well.
And I think you was right, Teneale, and you were saying that, is it because of the way, you know, that you are as a person as well? And I think a big thing is that you are unapologetically yourself.
Yeah, try to be.
Has it always been that way? Has that always been easy?
I think that it depends on the situation. To be honest, full transparency, I think you've got to be honest in these situations. So to answer that is, there's times obviously that I need to not tone it down, but tone it down. I know that a Geoffism or a Geoff-like is what it is. So there's definitely times that I'm self-conscious about taking too much air out of the room. And so there'll be times where I will sit back and will be a little bit quiet. In my life, when I do that, I get more questions about why you're so quiet.
I was going to say, people think there's something wrong.
What's wrong? Until I look at me and go, Geoff, what are you doing? So I try just to continually, like you said, be unapologetically myself, and that way that doesn't change. And I think that's what everyone should really do, to be honest.
I love that, because you know, your extroversion, your personality, it should be the same in all environments, because if it's not, your authenticity is not there. And people are going to sense that these days.
Makes life a lot easier.
And I think they sense it these days more than ever before, because of lots of things. People are so contactable. Social media is the thing. If you're not yourself in certain things, you can get caught out really easily. Whereas, you know, 20 years ago it was completely different. You could have two separate lives per se, but now these days I think you've got to be yourself.
Yeah, that's very true.
And people will take and will you know, give and take. So they'll be friends with you if they want that. If they don't, they'll just move on if you're not their cup of tea. So, but I've been very lucky that, you know, again, to go back to one of the key questions, was Mackay's been very good to me. I think my clients have been lovely to me. They're very engaged in my life. Guys, this year, as you two know, I'm getting married in July. So a lot of my questions, it is exciting. And a lot of my clients coming in, I want to know how the wedding plans are going. And they are very, I suppose, ingrained in my life. So I do share that. So again, like your clients, I'm sure you do the same. Yeah. You sit there and you'll give them 10 minutes of your professional time. And sometimes they want 10 minutes of your personal time as well. So, and that's that building that trust.
Absolutely.
So for anybody that's planning a wedding out there,
it's
what's your hot tip? What's one tip you could give?
Definitely outsource as much as you can.
Yes.
And I'm the outsource king. I don't like to do anything myself. I have a mower man, and Devlin does all our ironing and all those things.
You're not supposed to outsource to your partner.
I know, you've got to outsource to your partners, guys, because the time is what it is. I just can't build time. But I think definitely outsource. I think maybe use the people around you a little bit more, and try and make really clear-cut decisions. Don't dwell on it. I think if you dwell on it, I think too much into it, you'll just never get anything done. It's a big job, guys.
Absolutely.
I haven't done it yet.
I did a surprise wedding because it just was too big for me.
What
that's saying something. I'm a planner.
That's what we should have done. It should have done that. But Kels, look, come to me for tips. It's been hard work, but I'm looking forward to it. So
I'm looking forward to seeing your suit.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. Yes. I'll surprise you.
Is that ready?
Yes, please
you got
surprise
it?
us.
Well, the pink suit was for one of those other functions I went to, but I've got a different number ready for the wedding, guys. So you'll see some pictures.
It's exciting.
Very, very
It
exciting.
is exciting.
Time in your life.
Absolutely.
Just to go back, and we were speaking about challenges. Is there anything professionally, and I think it would be really useful for our listeners to understand if there's any challenges that you may have faced on your professional journey that could really resonate with people and help them along the way?
Just in general, Kels?
In general.
So me on my professional journey, one of the things that I found, again, I alluded at the start about 𝗣𝗆𝐿𝑚𝑎𝑐𝑎𝑦, so a long-term senior partner of our practice that I'm now the owner of. And during that time, he became very involved with local government, which you guys know. So I found myself in my mid-20s getting a kick along really early in my career. So one of the challenges that I did face is being very young and then being in that more senior role. Also being a boy back then in accounting was a little bit rarer. A lot of the senior owners were men, but all the ladies, all the staff were ladies. So there was that thing or an issue that I had where I was a young male suddenly running a team which had very experienced, 30-plus year lady accountants. So that was challenging at times when clients would see you as the junior accountant, not the senior tax manager or the soon-to-be partner. I always think that I try to look as youthful as I can. And in particular with that came the challenge where you'd be sitting opposite, a big group trying to facilitate a very high-end, tax meeting, and they're looking at you, and in their eyes, you're realising they think you're 12 and you're not. You've been doing it.
Did that create any kind of self-doubt for you, though? And I think thinking that people are thinking that way about you?
It does, because you sit there and you're trying to command the room. You're trying to build that trust. You're trying to get them to align to an outcome that's beneficial to all. And that was in that respect. And so you do sit there and start to doubt, oh, my God, what am I doing here, sort of thing. But I think the flip side of that coin was that was a blessing. I think I got my career jump very early, and it's led me to where I am today. And it's led me to do things that, a lot of my friends that maybe were 5 or 10 years behind in that uni stakes, they're in different points of their career and lives. So it has allowed me to do what I do today because I started and did that young. But that was definitely a challenge, is looking a lot younger than normal and engaging in a professional space where people are expecting experienced leaders.
I mean, you still look a lot younger than normal, if you say that.
Just went to uni in the 90s. When you said that, I was like, I thought you were much younger, so you
got the baby face going on for sure.
Lucky this is a podcast, though. No one can see us. But no, thank you. But I think that's been an issue, and even for my partner Michael, he's a senior neurologist, and he is also on the younger looking side. So what he's found is in that same professional challenge where patients think he's the junior doctor or the nurse, not the senior neurologist. So
how have you done anything? Did you do anything during that time that you found was particularly helpful?
To look youthful?
To overcome that.
And that is to stay indoors, get a job indoors, guys.
No, but in terms of changing that perception and getting people to understand that you do have the knowledge and the skills.
Again, the podcast today, guys, is about those professional questions. So on that, Teneale, one of the things is obviously know your knowledge. They're buying my time at SBB Accountants. It's a time-based industry. So they're buying my time and my expertise. So I think to answer that question, it's been about making sure that we're providing that great quality advice, that they see us as leaders, not only in our business, but in the community around the accounting aspect. And for us at SBB, what we try to do is we put a lot of money, as 𝐴𝑙𝑚𝑎𝑛 does, into professional development. And, you had Suze on, this year, in particular with Mackay solicitors. Same thing. The amount of professional development you put in, you've got to be seen as a leader. So that definitely did help. That goodwill that you put in upskilling yourself pays the dividends when you've got to get around those challenges, Teneale. So I think that's how I'd probably settle on that answer was, make sure you're providing the best advice, the most current advice, and building that trust again based on that.
And the more you do something as well, the easier it gets, right? And the more confident you become, and the more familiar people are seeing you.
And I think what I'm seeing these days, and I know what the staff are like, is there's a lot of anxiety just generally in the world post-COVID. And certainly the pace to which the tax office is moving, guys, and data data and digital technology, that's creating more anxiety because staff are having to be upskilled quicker. The rules are changing so regularly.
Absolutely.
This dovetailing between governments makes us that's a little bit harder again for us. So again, just knowing your staff or knowing your information gets around the challenge no matter what that is, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. For sure.
And so in the space where we're talking about people and doing that upskilling, you mentioned earlier about your branding, and that certainly comes through very clear. You're involved in so much in the community. You know, most people in the community know you by name and by face. So I think that's an important part for our listeners. You know, if you are in that space and you're thinking about how do I get myself out there, just getting involved in the community. Is there any tips that you can give in that space in terms of passion?
Yeah, look, you know, starting out is one of the things with Mackay, it's still a town, even though we're a big regional town, it's still a town where business can be done person to person. I still know everyone as you do in town. And if you've got a problem, no matter what it is, a professional one, you know roughly who to go to or which organisation to go to. So I think when you're starting out, just maybe put yourself out there, make sure that you are connecting with those people in town that you think will help down the track, particularly if it aligns to your business. And I know maybe later today, Kels will be talking about the trusted advisor sort of circle or pyramid, and we'll cover that off shortly. But I think building those relationships and being intentional about where you're networking to start out. So one, pick that and pick that path. Secondly, you've got to enjoy it. So maybe pick things that you'll actually enjoy. So, you know, for me, I don't love fishing, and I know lots of your listeners probably do love fishing, but I'm not going to go down a networking or a path where I'd be involved in a fishing group as an example. But certainly there's people out there that would, okay, and it doesn't complement my business. So maybe pick something that you're passionate about versus what is a professional alignment as well.
Because it's got to be sustainable, hasn't it?
It does have to be sustainable.
You're not going to keep going, because often these things take up
extra time, Kels. That's the word. So, you know, that's the emphasis there, is it is time outside your normal daily tasks.
Yeah. And Frances, on the podcast, she talked a lot about philanthropy and you know, this whole area and what you know, it's got to be about something that you are passionate in, because then it's not like a chore, you know. You can dedicate your time, or you can dedicate your money, or whatever way that you want to go about that. But I think that's really important. Like you say, if you're choosing an area that complements what it is that you're doing in the business and you're passionate about it, it's going to become easier.
And then I think once you've got those two and you've picked that path that you're going to go to, or whatever organisation you're going to connect with, is just make sure you listen as well. So, you know, you get that opportunity to tell people about your business or what you're doing here, or read the room, but just be conscious to listen, because what I found in a lot of my networking, particularly over the last 10 years, is just listening to the other person can stem, like you're doing today, it can stem other questions and other thought processes and other connections. So maybe just listen as well. Yeah.
And on just a couple of questions I have for our business owner type clients and listeners here is, you know, when you have clients that are coming in and they're thinking about maybe establishing a business, because you would hear that a lot, you know, and for different reasons. What kind of advice do you give when somebody's got the thought bubble? I want to go out there and establish a brand new business. Give us.
Look, it's a great question. I think, like I said, Mackay has a lot of people that are very entrepreneurial. There's a lot of great ideas come from Mackay, just like sports stars. So we've got this hub of people that have a lot of, I suppose, gifts to give, okay? And they can have these fantastic concepts, these thought bubbles like you're suggesting, a stick figure with a little bubble to the right. But particularly when they come to see us or any advisor, our role is really to, again, listen. So we work out what they want to do and see how that compares to the law. So a bit like the legal gurus, we've got tax law that we're bound to. So there's steps about advising the client, you know, what sort of structure is best, why it's best, alluding to them what it means to pick that structure, which bank account they should have, how to register, what their compliance and their standard needs are. So whilst they have these wonderful thoughts, there's got to be that lining to that bubble, which is the boundary, and it's about, you know, making sure that they stick within their boundary. So that's our role and what we see with a new business. And then helping them, I suppose the second part is connecting them with other people in the Mackay community who they may need. So that can be the lawyer, that can be the social media expert, that can be the local bank, and sort of triaging that. So I take our role as the GP of accounting, where they might come to us with one problem, but holistically we look at what they need for a new business and sort of triage it or refer to those specialists where we can. So that's what we tend to do.
That's great. And I love the idea, sorry, just to mention that, many people think of accounting and they just go, they do my tax returns, right? And it's so much more than that.
Guys, that makes up less than 10% of my total business.
Yes.
Basic compliance is not what an accountant does. The ITP that you see in the shop, sure, but a general accounting practitioner, and all of them in Mackay, which a lot of them are my friends that own other practices, they do a wonderful job as well. And the leverage or the acumen in this town is quite high. So they are wonderful. But we're all the same. That compliance only makes up, yes, that drives our touch points or our chats with our clients, but it's not what we do. 90% of it is that advisory sort of consulting stuff.
Do you get many people come in to come to SBB and go, I just want you to save me some money on tax? You
100%.
must hear that all the time.
100%.
Because we hear that, and I think accountants must really get that a lot.
I call it the water cooler chat. Guys, it's on the back. I was at the pub the other day and not me, this is my analogy, I was at the pub the other day and old mate next to me wrote on his napkin the business idea. We do get that, okay? So it's definitely that they're friends of the advisors, or my friend said, and it's very hard to undo some of that sometimes, Kels. And I get a bit giggly about it because it's just so common.
Yes.
And then you tell them what reality is. The other thing is, because, again, social media and digital age is what it is, guys, and as, again, we keep coming from a podcast today, is information's more readily available. So the old saying, you only take out of it what you want. Yep. So they can read 2 pages of documents and take out one sentence and act on that one sentence. And I think you find that in your game, but certainly in mine, that's a bit of a problem as well. They only read 1/8 of it, and then steering them back or getting them out of the mindset where they think they're right can be a challenge.
Yeah. I can imagine.
Yeah.
So, if someone was coming to you and said, I've got this business idea, would you ever say to them, that that's a really good idea and we've run the numbers and this is what we're thinking? Or do you turn them and say, we think that's a bad idea?
Look,
do you actually give that level of advice? Yes,
absolutely. So I think I tend personally to be very much like that. If that business isn't viable and professionally I can't see it getting the legs to get up, I will try and do my best to stop it in the tracks at that point, because there might be other avenues the client can take. Giving 100% of what they want to hear isn't what an advisor should do.
Absolutely.
There's got to be that sounding board where you've got the professional judgment's got to kick in and say, actually, no, hey, that's not going to work. But I understand what you're trying to do, and this is what you could do. So it might be a back and forward or flip the question around or the business structure around. So no, we definitely do push back when we need to. Guys, the tax law's been around since 1936. It's black and white. So I wish I could change it and make it simple for everybody, as every government has done or tried to do. But it just is what it is sometimes.
And you say it's black and white, but it's bloody complicated.
It is complicated. And I say there's more grey than ever before.
Yes.
They've bolted. I always think it's like the house that started as this cool little house and they've built all these extra rooms and half the rooms have been given thought. So one might be missing a window. One's missing
Stairs that goes to nowhere. Oh, actually, have you seen Bluey's house?
No, but I need to. My niece is about to turn 2, so I'm getting into. She's still in Peppa Pig phase. So.
Yeah. Kerry's in the room with us today as well, and I know that
Bluey's
Abby would be
huge.
watching Bluey, but Bluey's house is up for sale.
And
on
does it have
Domain.
stairs?
Well, they talk about hallways that kind of go to nowhere and stuff like this. I don't watch Bluey, but
is
it just
to make
prompted me.
the kids think of what's behind at the end of the hallway then?
I don't know if it's just because when you're creating cartoons and whatnot, you don't need to. Like, why does this need to? I don't have to have this lead to anywhere. So it's really cool. But they've done a little ad up for it, and they're selling it and saying that it's got these funky hallways, but they might not actually lead to anywhere.
And I think in the creative space, that's awesome to have that ability of free range. In again, what you do, what I do, and what solicitors do. We've got these boundaries, these limitations, so it is hard to map it out. But you're right, it is a lot greyer than it has been, and particularly with a lot of the new rules coming in. So yeah.
And what do you see as some of the most common, I guess, financial mistakes, just for lack of a better term there, that you see people make?
Yeah. Oh, look, there's definitely common ones that we see every day, and a lot of the same sort of narrative. But particularly some of the things that we have is like what we just talked about, receiving advice from non-advisors. So it might be the mate, the friend at the gym, the friend at the pub.
Crib room chat.
But there's always that time for that chat which stems conversations. But to act on that without getting an advisor or acting on it and then coming to us and say, please help. So we definitely do see that. One of the ones that we see is, making sure that you're engaging. If you're a business owner, and we've talked about small business today, but if you're an existing business owner, make sure you're engaging with your accountant, making sure you are keeping up to date with what's there. One of the common ones that I have is in contracting. Mackay has a lot of contracting, a lot of mining contractors. PSI rules, personal services income, has been around a long time, but the rules have been updated along the path at certain snippets. So acting on the rules that were original conception versus what the real rules are now. And there's a lot of grey in that space. So we do see making sure that you're engaged, making sure you're keeping up to date. So people putting, that on the back burner, that's one of the common mistakes. They just don't keep up to date with what's there or talk to their accountant about what changes with their structure. One of the other things that we do see too is a bit like, which I don't think a lot of people like to talk about, but like when the Barefoot Investor came around, they separated all the bank accounts. So we see that in tax land. We have a business bank account, a tax account and a super account, which accountants love. You transfer the money. But when the BAS comes, guys, and there's no money in those accounts, that's a problem. So spending the tax money is another common mistake.
Not having a plan, really.
Not having a plan. So I think that's a very common one. I appreciate post-COVID cash flow is the other one, is not only looking at the business cash flow, but looking at their personal cash flow. So if you're robbing Peter to pay Paul, at some point Paul wants to get paid back. So you've got to realise that cash is king. So cash flow is another common one. They sort of do themselves a disservice by trying to trick the system where they have spent the tax money, they don't engage with their accountant, and unfortunately then they come up short. So, Kelsey, they're some of the common ones that we're definitely seeing.
Part of that could be the engagement part too, though, right? Because sometimes they don't actually realise the impact as well.
Yeah, and I think it's the embarrassed thing. Like, we all go to these advisors because they have the acumen we don't have. That's why they come to us. So sometimes I think the embarrassment thing is still in 2024 is a thing.
Yeah. And I think there's what we see a lot quite often can be because financials are not easy to read, and they're complicated. They're big beasts of documents, and that's why you are specialists in that space. Yeah. But we do see people that will come in and they it's not their job to read them, but there are line items on there that we can point out and get them to speak to you guys about in terms of loan agreements that they might have between entities, and that might cause them to get into this space where they feel like they've been able to use income, but it's actually owed back to another area.
A different area altogether. Yeah. Absolutely.
And it's quite surprising the amount of business owners that you can sometimes say to, how are you taking your income?
Yes.
I have no idea.
No, they don't know. There's so many different streams, and that's what I think Teneale's alluding to, and different entities and inter-entity loans, Division 7A loans.
So probably, that good tip is just, getting a good understanding of what the financials are actually telling you there. Have a good conversation with your accountant about
a story is the word there, Teneale. You just said the word story, and I've always believed that a set of financials always tell a story. The balance sheet particularly is the story. So the assets and the liabilities tell the story. The profit, sure, it comes and goes. Understanding definitely where your income's coming from and how it's taxed is incredibly important. But the balance sheet, what's left, how many assets you've built, how much working capital you've built up versus what you still owe or loan or how you finance that. That's the true story, is understanding where that sits. And guys, I sit there quite a lot, and probably one of the other common mistakes is they put so much trust in us that they don't read the balance sheet or they don't read the financials or our letter, Teneale. So I think, guys, one of the common mistakes is they don't read what we send out. They just wholeheartedly trust what we produce. So one of the things we try to do with them is sit down and say, especially with new business, this is what a financial statement means. This is what your balance sheet looks like and why. So it's a great story, if I can focus on that word there.
So if we're thinking about tips to have a successful time, a smooth time at tax return.
Tax time is coming up, Kels.
It is coming up, so very relevant, very, very relevant.
Countdown. Fun accounting 30th of June party. So other than booking your 30th of June party, there is actually real accounting tips as well that they need to come, especially when you're coming into tax time. So around that, there's the basic stuff to make it a little bit smoother, like your question question has alluded to there, is make sure, number one, like I said, you're engaging with your accountant. Tax time is coming up. So guys, you've still got time to do stuff. See you guys. Make tax minimisation strategies a reality. So there's definitely that planning, that tax planning space. And that's definitely what we see in April to June is tax planning is very common off the back of March BASs, where we look at the 9 or 12 months worth of data projected out and then put them in touch with yourselves about making some smart decisions pre-June. So we're in planning phase. So I think it's very pertinent to get that ready for tax. The other thing is get your house in order. So queries or how accountants go back to their clients to chase up information that's been missed. What we're seeing post-pandemic is people are busy, people are tired. The last thing they want to do is talk to their accountant Christmas, Easter, school holiday time to drop information back. So having that already now, ready for June, it always puts you in good stance. So that's getting all your receipts together, making sure you've even just summarised them the best you can for your accountant. I'm pretty confident all accountants in Mackay would love a lovely little summary, not a little shoebox. We don't see shoeboxes, guys, but certainly I appreciate some people still act that way. So make sure that you are getting them together. Make sure that if there's any changes to rules, just maybe reach out to your accountant pre-June, pre-tax about the rules. And the last thing is, if you're coming off the back of 23, the last financial year, guys, there's a lot of stuff that, read your balance sheet, read your rules, learn your story, but there's probably some tips there around getting some things prepaid, like those PAYG installments that get created around now. They're a common question at the moment. So probably understanding your tax timeline is probably the other tip there ready for tax, okay? Making sure what cash you need to meet your tax timeline, okay? So there's some common tips.
Yeah, and you'd mentioned one earlier, and you said, just have a separate bank account for your tax.
Yes.
And
pop it
put
away.
some away along the year.
Yep.
Put some away.
It's not
and
a
have
burden,
it there.
Kels, when it gets there. And the ATO had been forthcoming with how we engage with them, but I think we can all see and we all watch the news where it's heading. So making sure that cash is there will put you in the best, I suppose, place possible.
Absolutely. Yeah. And obviously there's a lot of specialists that you might need to engage at different points in time. And you
get appointments, You
mentioned a little earlier about that sort of inner circle, your professional house, so to speak. What do you think's the benefit of being able to work alongside a good solicitor or financial advisor or whoever it might be?
Plug. Hashtag Ormans. But in particular with that, I've always believed in it, as I know you guys have. So I look at you two today and everyone that's come before and after us that is a huge benefit to any client to have all of them in the room. I think from your point of view, I think a financial planner or that industry has always shown us a holistic approach and viewpoint is what's best. So not understanding the client ins and outs the wholeheartedly. So I think, number one, we've learnt a lot from that industry. Accountants are in there as a specific sort of niche. We provide that tax advice element. Most deals in Australia require all of them, okay? You need a good solicitor, you need a good accountant, and you need a good financial planner. We all do things differently. We all have different licenses. So I think it's gone from best practice to nearly being a necessity, to be honest. I take the view that it is a necessity. So we do engage a lot with you guys, all the financial planners in town and the solicitors. And why that is, some of the common questions I get asked is, Geoff, in the lease I need to put this in there. I'm not a solicitor. I don't write a lease, but I can get you a solicitor. But they trust you enough sometimes that they think you do the whole job. So I think having that dynamic and being clear to the client who's in the dynamic is just so critical, especially get deals done, to get them done correctly, efficiently, and just to protect the client. The client does such a good job, guys, to build their wealth. You don't want to put that at jeopardy. So I think one of the things is that house is just so important.
Absolutely. And we definitely know, we believe wholeheartedly that, you can't be the jack of all trades and the master of none.
No.
So having specialists in your corner can make sure that you don't derail yourself and you're well positioned. You have that plan, because half the time it's really knowing I actually need a plan to start off with, and then I need to review that plan, whether that comes from financial planning, from tax planning,
And it stems so many conversations, doesn't it, guys? Like, again, for your listeners, they're used to receiving your statement of advices, which is this beautiful booklet that tells you that plan. In accounting, it's, discretionary. So a business plan is becoming a bit more important for the new clients in the banks.
Yes.
But a lot of the existing businesses, I can tell you, they haven't rewritten their business plan lately. They don't continually update their visions and strategies and missions. And sometimes those goals get away. So what I think having a good financial planner in your corner is it sticks you to those goals, and better than what an accountant or solicitor will do. But we can definitely offer tax minimisation, how to account for those goals, and sort of work together to get you to the goal. So I think, you're spot on, Teneale.
100%.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There's definitely immense value in that. And I know that we're running short on time today.
Yes.
We'd love to have you back another time, and maybe we'll do a deep dive in tax. Listeners, you tell us what you want to hear about. We assume it's tax.
Tell us.
It's the first question's going to be, I'm paying too much tax. How can I say that?
The classic chestnut. Love it.
But if you have liked today's episode, please don't forget to follow us and share with your friends and your family or anyone that you know that could benefit from listening today. And we do, like I said, value your feedback, so get in touch and tell us what you liked, what you didn't like, or what you want to hear more of. And we'll see you next time on the Wealth Experience podcast.
Thanks so much for that, Geoff.
Thanks, guys.
The opinions of the presenters are objectively ascertainable and are not intended to be financial product or personal advice.